Hello, and welcome to AI Curious. My name is Jeff Wilser. I'm a journalist, I am a human, and I'm curious about AI. Today, we're getting down to business. Specifically, the cajillion-dollar question of how AI can be used to help companies. Now, for better or worse, and I think better, this is one of the reasons so many people are both excited and freaked out about AI. We're wondering, how can AI make my job easier? And also, is AI going to take my job and replace me? So to dig into all of that, I am thrilled to speak with Rachel Woods, CEO of the AI Exchange. Now, Rachel is an expert in AI and business operations. She used to be a data scientist at Facebook. She's now an AI consultant and educator, mainly for businesses, and she and her community, the AI Exchange, helps VPs and CEOs and managers figure out how to integrate AI into their operations. And she's also now a TikTok and social media influencer, and she's widely recognized as an authority in the space, serving up tons of sharp insights each day. Now, I know I'm biased, but I do think that pretty much anyone with a job can benefit from this conversation with Rachel. We get deep into AI and business on a few different levels. From a big picture, Rachel shares some principles about how to think about the overall strategy of using AI. And a lot of that means doing the work to unpack and better understand your workflow. We also get into some super concrete and practical ways that you can use AI to make your job easier. And she shares some advice for those who are just getting started. As the cherry on top, towards the end, Rachel kind of surprised me by offering a promo code to the listeners of AI Curious. So we've made it, guys. We've now got promo codes. We're legit. So stick around to the end of the episode for that promo code to the AI Exchange. But before that, there's a lot of nutritious content to get to. So please enjoy my conversation with Rachel Woods, CEO of the AI Exchange. Rachel, great to have you on. Welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Really excited to chat today.
So let's start with the basics of the AI Exchange. What do you guys do? What's the format? How does it work?
Yeah, so everything's been centered around how to apply AI in business. And then as we've been kind of doing the research and working with companies and applying AI ourselves, we've actually honed in even more on specifically applying AI to business operations. So how do you really take what this technology is good at and what it's going to be good at and apply that to building a business or running your team or doing your work really like AI first. And so that's been like the whole focus of everything we do is just really like relentlessly answering that question. And then we pull that out into, I create a lot of content across pretty much every social media channel at this point, a lot of videos to help people kind of understand the basics. And then we run a paid community and we have a set of courses for people that are ready to jump in and ready to dig deeper. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's early days and there's so much that's going to change about running businesses now that we have like this version of AI, and everything we're doing is just centered around how to help people take advantage of that.
And just to get a listener's sense of scale and scope, what are the types of industries and verticals that are coming to you? What types of businesses are these?
That's what's been surprising, I would say, is the diversity of industries has pretty much been every single industry. And earlier this year, I was like, oh man, that's like a problem, right? That like we have healthcare next to e-commerce, next to marketing agency, next to SaaS. But actually, when you scope down to how is AI changing how we work, there's a lot of similarities across all of those businesses, no matter like the industry or size. So we really are everything from like small mom and pop e-commerce all the way up to like public pharma healthcare companies. It's kind of wild.
You mentioned there are similarities on how AI impacts businesses across industries. What's an example of that?
I think maybe one important clarification is when I think about how AI is going to change how we work, I mean, there's one bucket, which is the tools we now have today, which are like superpowered and supercharged because of AI. And of course, like the tool that an enterprise might buy, is going to be different from the tool that a small business will buy. There's things like security and compliance and just scale that differs there. But a lot of what we focus on is really like the meat behind all of that, and especially expanding outside of the tools. So one of the biggest areas we've invested in is teaching people, how do you delegate the work that you do the way that you do it to AI, and how do you write prompts and piece together different kind of no code tools to do that. That is much more of a universal application of AI to business. That again, it really is like, I mean, there's differences, but it is a lot more similar than you'd expect from the small business to the enterprise.
Got it. And we'll get to your kind of larger thoughts on strategy in a bit. I'm curious first, what are the main questions that businesses come to you with? What do they most want to know? What are they most either concerned about or excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it actually comes back to what I was just talking about, which is like the number one question I get is, oh, is there a tool that can help me do that?
Mhm.
Or what tool should I be using? And what I tell people is, there are a whole new wave of amazing tools. And there's also all the tools you've been using are getting a whole new wave of amazing features. But there is a totally separate side of AI's application in business outside of that, which I think is a lot more like fundamental. And it's a lot more about how we work. And so I think that difference is maybe something that, we see. I think, again, it's really early. So go use the tools for sure. But I think there's going to be bigger changes to work.
And you've mentioned before on social media the importance of thinking about strategy and overall kind of bigger picture principles as opposed to, as you say, just the tool. And of course, the tool we have today will likely be very different from the tool 6 months from now, much less 5 years from now, right? So if we get too
Yeah.
focused on let's make sure we master this one thing without thinking about the underlying principles, that's probably short-sighted. So am I warm on this? And if so, what are some of the kind of bigger picture strategies you think is important for businesses to embrace?
Yeah, I mean, one simple way I think about it is that these tools can now help us do a new type of work, but it is still the same type of work. So, like, editing videos is a really good example. We now have AI tools that can take a really long YouTube video and with AI chop that up into smaller videos and then add, captions and turn it into a short form piece of content. But that's going to be relatively like the same way that work is done from
Mm-hmm.
everybody that uses the tool.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger jump is in how do we, as people, as marketers, as operators, as product people, learn to actually delegate into these systems to where it's actually doing work the way that we want that work to be done, and it's an extension of us. That is really the at least what we're seeing and what we're investing in and seeing success. Like, that's a lot more of the mindset that's been really promising.
You mentioned that virtually every industry is coming to you and you're seeing kind of interest and engagement across the board. I'm guessing some industries are more naturally suited than others to embrace AI, right? We want to say, yay, everyone can benefit. But the reality is, I'm guessing a plumber might have less use for it than a coder, right? To be very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
What industries do you see as having the most potential for embracing AI to help with their operations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think over time, like a long enough time horizon, it is going to be every industry. But I mean, just like the internet rolled out in phases, there were different businesses at different times that got a lot of benefit. And there were some businesses that were too early in the internet for whatever they were selling. We're going to have that same thing, I think, with AI. Right now, I mean, well, I'll just say the stats just came out. I was reading another report yesterday that like 30% of sessions in ChatGPT are literally programming and coding use
Wow.
cases. I don't know if you've seen that, but I mean, it makes sense. I use it for that a lot. Like, it's probably well, it's well over 30% of my ChatGPT sessions in the actual app. And so I think
I'm not
there's,
comfortable
yeah.
revealing what mine are for. For the record, you're braver than I am. The pie chart of my ChatGPT will be a very special episode of this podcast that might be blackmail for me. So good on you for disclosing yours. Go on. Sorry.
That's actually an interesting thing. It's kind of funny, like how we feel a little pause, admitting what we're using AI
Yeah,
for sometimes. Yeah, like
totally.
it's totally a thing. But yeah, I mean, like programming is really obvious. I think across the board, any work though that's like heavily written knowledge work. I think of work that has a lot of SOPs, a lot of processes, especially processes that right now somebody's going through that doc every time you want to run a marketing campaign and they're putting everything together. Those fields and those professions, like, man, we just have such an amazing toolkit now in our hands.
So let's address the obvious elephant in the room. Is AI coming to take all of our jobs, right? A very simple question. I think a pretty nuanced and complex answer is my guess. I see the arguments on both sides. I've seen the take that, well, in the short term, yes, there will be disruption and jobs lost, but that might kind of lead to even better jobs in the future and create more opportunity. I've seen more of a doomsday side. I've seen more of the pie in the sky side. You've seen it all yourself, and you are more in the trenches than almost everyone. How are you thinking now about the question of, let's break it down in two chunks: AI's short-term and longer-term impact on jobs?
It's another really great question. I mean, and it's a question on everybody's mind. I think that, so I'm a believer that the best way to understand what the future holds is to work on shaping it, right? I think that there's a lot more that we can shape and choices we can make for the future that we want to happen. I also tend to be an optimist. And so, like, maybe that colors my view, but really, the more and more I've spent time with this technology, the harder, yeah, I've realized like how difficult it is to really get AI to do like the top tier of work that each of us like really loves. Really we're paid for, we're compensated for, we get the results for our businesses for. I actually started breaking this out into what I call an AI task hierarchy. I don't know if you've seen this. It's been something new I've been sharing on social, but yeah, I mean, like in every job, right, there's different types of work you do. There's work that literally somebody can say like that was correct or not, which I call kind of level one work. There's work that is a little bit more in this like good enough bucket where there's just some minimum quality threshold. It's that weekly report your manager wants to see. It's that email you need to respond to. And I think those first two tiers, yeah, like AI is already and is going to do a lot of that. But there's a ton of work in like, and I call it kind of this excellent work bucket that really the strategy and like, why are you a good marketer? Why are you a good product manager? Why are you a good copywriter? All of that is stuff that I think people are just going to have more time to do, more time to spend on. And like, that's really going to stick around. And so maybe the impact is we all work a little less and we get to spend just the time we are working on that really top tier work. But I'm just not sold that we're going to need like less good marketers in the world because we have AI to do kind of the lower level work. That's how I think about it. Maybe it's like very pragmatic, but also very optimistic. But I think again, like we have choices. We don't have to just fall into whatever doomsday scenario that someone might say.
And as you say, Rachel, your focus is not on the tools themselves, or maybe it's the wrong way to phrase it. Maybe it's that the overriding strategy is not a focus on the tools. It's thinking about kind of how we work. And I want to get a little more of that in a bit. That said, let's get into some of the fun tools, at least as the tools that exist today. What are some of and let me set some context for the curious AI listeners out there with like a vague sense of, okay, I get in theory, AI can be useful for me. I get that I've seen examples maybe of how using ChatGPT, I can do X. but they might be a little fuzzy on some concrete things of how their actual jobs can be made easier. What are some of your favorite tips and tricks and tools that you've seen with AI of how businesses can actually knock out, as you put it, these lower level functions?
So, okay, I love shouting out tools as much as I'm like, there's a lot more to AI than just the tools. Like, there are also a lot of like really, really amazing tools. I think that everybody should have an experience using AI with images or video. I think that's one of the most mind blowing experiences when
Hmm.
you are able to like go into Midjourney. And if you haven't used Midjourney yet, it's going to be a little weird to set up. You still have to create like a Discord account and all this stuff. Um, but it's just so cool that you can describe something and you can see how other people are using different terms to describe stuff. And like, it feels like magic where you just created something that actually like looks really cool and maybe you don't have that skill
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
Same thing with like Canva actually has a ton of AI editing features for images where like the thing that you would wish you had a Photoshop guru on the team, you can
Mm.
just now send to that person.
Before we go further, what are some kind of concrete way businesses can use these image based tools to knock out some low hanging fruit tasks?
Yeah, I mean, for Midjourney, for example, we've created like a prompt template of what does our brand style look like for
Mm.
our newsletter or like kind of blog post header images, right? So every week I'm generating 2 of these images, and they're like, bespoke and customized to our brand. And like, I think that's still like incredible and mind blowing, even though we've had that for now like over a year.
Okay, on top of images, dabbling, what else? Other kind of tools out there do you find that businesses can leverage in a super useful way to actually improve their efficiencies?
So yeah, I mean, this question is also really hard because there's just so many. Like if
Right.
I could do hours of listing them out. Also, another one that I did this morning was, like all of the transcription tools are like amazing now, right? And the
Hmm.
fact that you can take any podcast, any YouTube video, any TikTok, whatever, transcribe that for free. Like there are a lot of free tools to do that, and then throw that into either ChatGPT or Claude is another. It's Anthropic's version of ChatGPT, also free, and then you can write prompts to summarize stuff. Then all of a sudden you have a really easy workflow right there. There are a lot of these just general efficiency workflows. Then the stuff that I get really excited about is when you like double click one level deeper and you're like, okay, what are the different workflows and work tasks that you do for your job, and how do you start setting up kind of some of those more bespoke systems? But I think for the AI curious person, like even just realizing there are a lot of these which you could just start using. Like you don't have to spend a ton of time to kind of develop a system. You can just start getting summaries like this morning.
You've mentioned before, and I think this is one of your overriding themes, that a big question that's been motivating you is how do we actually use this stuff? How has your thinking on that evolved over time from when you started experimenting and dabbling to where you are now as an educator and consultant?
It has changed quite a bit over the year. I think at first everybody kind of fell into a little bit of the excitement of we won't actually need prompt engineering. Like GPT-4 is so good, or these models are so good and they're improving so fast that like we won't need to learn how to communicate to these systems. But the big question of like how do we actually use this stuff really came out of, okay, if you're going to adopt that mindset, you really get stuck again with the tools or the more generic use cases. And
Hmm.
so, how are we actually going to use that stuff? Like the answer is, okay, well, what are the business problems and processes that you have in your work, and how can you begin breaking that work down into smaller tasks and chunks that you can really start to actually delegate to these systems, and how do you build a more bespoke AI powered system to execute work the way that you want it done. And all of that is when it was just like, okay, to me, it's just so obvious. This is going to be a field. This is going to be a discipline. The act of breaking down work to power a business's operations, like, that's not something you just wake up and do easily. It's going to be something people are going to need to learn. And so that's also where like AI operations, which is this, concept that's been, growing, and I think is really going to be a massive thing. That's where those thoughts came from, is what's that next level, right? Beyond the general use cases and the tools.
You've mentioned the words bespoke systems a couple of times. Can you elaborate a bit more on what that means? And then what is your own personal system for thinking about how to break down and create a bespoke system?
So I love this simple example. If you write a prompt that's your perfect prompt for writing a LinkedIn post, do you know who it's going to sound like? It's going to
Hopefully
sound
you.
like you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's going to sound like Jeff. And if I write my perfect prompt for getting a LinkedIn post that sounds like me, then it's going to sound like me. And I think at first we kind of assumed there was maybe going to be like some interchangeable things that you can just plug one example or two examples of, Jeff's post in here, and plug one or two examples of Rachel's post in here. And then all of a sudden you have these magical prompts that can write, in our own styles. The reality is just a lot messier than that. And social media posts is so simple compared to how do you design a funnel or a set of emails that you're going to send to your customer to get them to purchase your product. How do you design a product, planning document or product strategy the way that your company does product management? There are just so many more nuances in the way that we actually work. Again, that like high level, the tier 3 excellent work that I talk about. There's just so many more nuances in that to me, the answer, it has to be that we are creating, that people begin to learn how to create more bespoke systems by communicating with these models.
Is it fair? Got it. Is it fair to summarize or rephrase bespoke system loosely as personalized and specific to you and to your company, not to try and take some off the shelf solution and just Command F, Control F, just swap in your name and say, this is now the Rachel show. It's like you have to do the work to understand your own system, as opposed to thinking we'll apply some one size fits all. Isn't that getting that right?
Got it. I mean, and I think there will be tools that help do that personalization over time. But man, the work of learning to delegate into these systems is, the people that are able to nail that, like, they're the ones that are already ahead, and they're the ones that are going to stay ahead. Which, to answer your other question of like, what's our system, again, this has been the research and the work of this year, really figuring out how do you put this stuff into practice. And so we've really narrowed down on, you need to learn prompting. You need to learn how to break out the way that you want to do work into smaller tasks, have a framework for creating those prompts and a framework for measuring where they're off so that you can improve them with each time you use them. And we decided to go ahead and put that, like, we were going to put it in our overall like membership and community that we offer. And we did. But we actually also decided to have a more like hands-on experience for people with videos and office hours to really help accelerate how quickly they're able to do that. And that's our prompting for AI Ops bootcamp that we just started offering. And I will, if you want one, I will put a discount code that we can have for anybody who's listening to this. Yeah,
absolutely, great. So you specialize in AI and business operations, but business operations is almost a hilariously large scope. So within that, what have you found to be the kind of areas of operations or buckets of operation that are most effective and ripe for using AI?
So I think there's a couple ways to look at the, AI operations, quote unquote, bucket, which really, like, just to give a clear definition, I see it as AI applied to how a business operates.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are, I see a lot of use cases and examples that are department specific. So it's, every week we are sending this type of email to our customers, updating them on new features we released or new announcements that our, CEO wants to structure. But people already have some sort of like SOP or framework for how they do that. Great. That is a fantastic thing to start to build an AI powered system around. Same thing with like client briefs, like a lot of the stuff that's very kind of like templatized but
Mm-hmm.
repeatable work. The thing that I don't hear people realize enough, and I love like getting to spend one-on-one time with businesses because I'm like, tell me about how your customer support team talks to your product team. And they're like, oh, like
You're like,
we
what? Those two are supposed to talk?
yeah. Although one time a company was like, "Oh, actually, our customer support team reports to our product team," and I was like, "What? Okay, yeah, you guys are way ahead." No, but then it's like, okay, well, one of the problems that product people have is they constantly need more insights from customers, especially around pain in the product. And some teams will have a person whose job it is to kind of like gather all of the insights, all the customer support tickets, and tag them and triage them and move them over to the product team for the product team to be aware of. But there's different levels of sophistication that companies have around that because it takes time, and like that's a really big investment. But now, especially if you don't already have that, it's much easier to set up that type of system where you have AI doing the summarizing, the tagging, the synthesis. Now all of a sudden you can open up that door between those two teams. And that stuff gets me really excited too.
No, I love that example. What have you found AI to be surprisingly good at within the scope of business operations?
Yeah. I'll give you a maybe like a non-typical answer.
Love it.
I think AI is an incredibly good editor. So a lot of people talk about AI being a really good drafter, right? So like it writes the first draft of an email. But how many times do you write an email and then you're looking at it and you're like, does this sound like not very friendly? Like, should I add some more exclamation points in this? Or, should
Sure.
I,
Or
right?
you have your friend look at this. Did I get the tone right? Does
Yeah.
this sound angry to you? Right.
Is the key, the core ask, is that like well communicated, right?
Yeah.
Those types of things, you can have prompts that check that stuff for you. And there's even these, if we really want to get nerdy, there's even these techniques where you can have it explain its rationale and analyze it and write out all that rationale and then say like this was a friendly email or not. And that stuff is like, it's just so impressive how good it is at being kind of the editor, if you will.
And now how about what has AI so far been surprisingly kind of bad at least at this point when it comes to business operations?
So I could go down the nerdy rabbit hole of all the stuff these models aren't designed to do, and I think that actually might be helpful to touch on is like, at the end of the day, this is a language model, right? So it's not good at math. And you can help it be good at math a little bit, but ultimately you're better off using something else. But one of the funnier, I like the funny answers to some of these too, because you go on Twitter, you see all the stuff, right? But the stuff that really bothers me is it is so bad at avoiding the word game changer. When you,
Amazing.
like that's the sign on LinkedIn that somebody is using AI to write that post, and it hasn't written avoid the word game changer. This is really important. Do not use the word game changer. Like my prompts a lot of times have like that level of specificity. Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit how you think about adding specific guardrails in your prompts?
So this is something we go into pretty in depth in the course because, again, earlier this year, it was not obvious that investing time in prompting was worthwhile.
Hmm.
And my mindset has completely shifted on that. I mean, I think really the reality is I just learned about this whole deeper set of use cases you actually can get these models to do for you if
Mm-hmm.
you're good at articulating. The process, though, of getting it to actually do that um, is hard, and it requires usually a lot of trial and failure and iteration. And so, one of the biggest things is I think everybody should, who wants to use these AI systems to delegate their work into and is really committed to that process, they need to adopt a framework that they are going to write prompts in, and then have a really easy way to, whenever it fails, so it gives you an output you don't want, you just take that failure and you plug it into that part of your framework and you keep going, right? And so
Hmm.
it's more of a cycle of you wrote a prompt and then it didn't work and you added something back in, versus if you're still in the world of you write a really, really long paragraph to get some task done. If it's not working, you're kind of stuck, and it just takes a lot more energy to figure out how to improve that.
Can you describe a little bit what prompting framework means as opposed to paragraph? I kind of understand at a high level, but can you almost like describe what it looks like? Is it a series of small questions? Is it like a bulleted list? How would you view that?
Yeah, so we use what we call Markdown. So it's a way to kind of add a little bit more structure into your prompts. If you look up Markdown, it uses like hashtags. That'll be kind of the sign that you see a prompt using this. And then each section we have that we've just like built out and researched over time. And I'll just give you one example of one section. So the game changer issue, we have a section that we call criteria, or criteria for successful output, or criteria for successful completion of the task. You can kind of
Mm-hmm.
play with it a little bit. But whenever the output says game changer, I would take the feedback that I say, avoid the word game changer, and I'm going to put that in the criteria section of the prompt. And then, and this is where it just takes some time to get used to these prompts. But if you say something like, and this is really important, like it will actually stop using the word game changer. And so you can imagine that really simple example of like you wrote an original prompt, it did something you didn't like, you took that feedback and you put it back into your prompt. If you do that over and over again, that like reminds you of is working with and training up somebody to do work the way that you want it done. And that's basically what you're doing with these systems. And so, yeah, like when I talk about that, there's so much more these systems can do than just the tools. The tools are super cool, but like that's pretty wild that I can tell it, don't say the word game changer, and it will follow that, right?
Absolutely. What, conversely, what's the biggest mistake you're seeing businesses or business leaders make when they start experimenting with AI?
I think it's really um, both difficult and tempting to understand what these systems are actually capable of. And so I do talk to a lot of businesses, especially, kind of first call, where they're trying to do something like really big or really complex. And they're kind of still a little bit stuck in it's magic mindset, which it's the closest thing we have to magic, but it's still not, still not magic. And so I always really recommend that people start with very small tasks. And if they want to do something really big and meaty, that they try to break stuff down as small as possible.
I think it's aligns with kind of best practice advice on work in general, right? Of like, if you
Yeah.
want to do a big project, don't start big, start small. Take the tiniest chunk you can and do that, whether that's AI involved or just good old fashioned human work. So I totally endorse that. You've mentioned that there's more to AI than automation. Can you elaborate on that a bit? 'Cause I think that feels like a distinct philosophy than bespoke system in the sense that you're perhaps expanding. You're not just, and that I'm guessing, you're not just saving time and money, but perhaps AI is even creating a superior product. So talk a little more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're touching on it, right? Which is like to jump ahead to where I think a lot of these systems are going. we haven't even gotten to AI predicting a lot of stuff for us yet, right? Or proactively giving us feedback on things. My specific comment though around AI is more than automation is, a lot of the work that I do online is taking what is the popular narrative and trying to add more grounded, practical perspective for the people that want it. And one of the things that I struggled a lot with when I was thinking about this category of AI operations is like, oh, is it just actually like automations specialist? Right. Or is that really like what the role is going to be? Because that's what you can squint, and a lot of the work right now does look like we're like automating repetitive workflows. But I really like had to, uh, you know, challenge like the people that I was talking with, and when I was like working through some of this like naming and shaping stuff, to say like, okay, well, what about the stuff that's not repetitive? What about the stuff that we're not trying to automate? Right? What about the proactive? What about the like knowledge that we might be generating in these systems that might be, feeding back to some of the things we're doing in our work? Like, I do just really think that the space of AI applied to work is so much bigger than, I got that email, I went and I checked the data and I sent back the email. Okay, yeah, you should automate that. But there's just so much more. So, yeah.
To that point, what do you envision or speculate might be some areas of operations that, let's say, 5 years from now, look completely different?
I think customer support is a really great one. Especially, I think back to my last company that I ran. One of our challenges was we wanted to do so much on proactive customer support or customer success, right? But we didn't have the bandwidth to, because we were still handling like inbound customer support challenges. It's going to be a totally different world of like, what type of internal support are you giving to your customers after they've bought? I think there's going to be a lot of those things. Like, same thing with one emerging hot take I have is like, maybe we won't even have the same silos in the business that we have today. I mentioned the customer support to product.
Say more, as in
Like,
like completely breaking down the verticals within even company, even, and having marketing team working side by side with engineers.
I mean, when you think about what AI is going to unlock for us, it's giving us the ability to execute in a way we've never been able to. And we're going to be freed up to spend so much more time on the what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're doing it, not actually doing it, right? And I think I'm really excited to see some experiments of people combining those questions in like different ways than they've done before. Because yeah, I'm not convinced that the silos we have today are the ones that we'll have in 10 years, let's say.
I love that take. That's a spicy one. So, this might be business operations related, might not. What are some of your favorite, just personal prompts, memories, or experiences that you struck you as either funny or weird or creepy or surprising, or it took a weird left turn? Like, whoa, what the hell are that? Where did that come from?
Probably the one that stands out the most was actually like week 2 of ChatGPT being out. And one night I literally had like I think it was before they put a message cap on. I think it was like a 3 or 4 hour conversation in one thread. And the conversation was like, help me build a sci-fi novel about the future value of knowledge and what a society around like knowledge in this new way like looks like and operates. And I mean, it was kind of an interesting novel. I'll never share it. Like, it wasn't like worth reading, but that actually, and this was literally I think like week 2 or 3. This was in December of last year of ChatGPT being out. That was when I was like, holy crap! Like, this thing can reason and make logic jumps and take and respond to feedback in a way that, and I've been using GPT for a while before ChatGPT, but this was just on a whole other level. So
We'll wind things down here. Last couple of questions. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur or to business director, vice president, manager, or junior employee, anyone in business who is looking to start dabbling in AI for business operations, what's kind of the first thing you would suggest they do?
So I think if you don't have ChatGPT either bookmarked or you're, you're using it every day, like it's kind of tired advice, but really if you're not there, like you got to be there. You got to be using it. That's going to be the best way for you to find use cases for yourself and for your business. But in terms of more like general and actionable advice, the thing that I am seeing a lot of businesses have a step change in their internal adoption of AI from is building and setting up a prompt library for their team. So what this is like I write a prompt to do some task and I put it in the library. And then now if you're doing the same task, you can now use my prompt. And maybe you're going to find something in that prompt because you ran it and it gave you the game changer output. And then you're going to put in there, don't use the word game changer. Now you've improved that prompt, right? And it's in this shared repository. And the reason why it's really like impactful might sound really simple, but it just really sets a culture of building with AI, and that AI is a welcomed part of work, and people are gonna be able to collaborate around it. And it also has a lot of productivity gains as you start building up these prompt libraries. So that's my number one tip. If you don't have a prompt library already, we also have tips on how to set all that stuff up. So you're welcome to reach out if that's something that you're stuck on.
On that note, say a little more about, for folks who are curious about your community and what you have to offer educationally, say a little more about what types of, what's the format, what's the medium, where do they go to Discord, what's the kind of the ecosystem, and then how can they get in touch with this community and with you?
So we offer a couple of things. The main thing is our membership, which gives you access to all of the research in our Slack community. And this is really the best place for, I would say, like the individual practitioner. So either kind of the business owner who's taking on AI adoption themselves, or somebody maybe on your team who's really kind of spearheading, being the AI go-to person. Because you're immediately also put in a community of over 1,000 other people who are also trying to adopt AI in their work. One of my favorite channels is we have an Get Unstuck channel, which is I ran into this issue. My prompt won't do this thing. I need to find a tool that does this. And other community members are helping you with what they've figured out for their business. So it's super valuable. And then if you, again, want more hands-on training, we have our first course out right now, which is the Prompting for AI Operations course, which is really breaking down a lot of the stuff I've talked about in this conversation of how to delegate to AI. And if you're just looking for help, you can always just send us an email and we will help you point and plug into the right kind of the right resources for you.
And we'll have links in the show notes, of course, but what should folks Google to find this? And also, what's the best way to find you on Twitter/X and TikToks and all the plugs?
We are the AIexchange.com. And then I'm Rachel Woods AI. If you search that across roughly any platform, I'll show up. Unfortunately, I wasn't like, OG enough on these platforms to have the same handle everywhere. But yeah, Rachel Woods. If you find me one place, I have a link in my bio with a link to all the other ones. So
awesome. Rachel, thanks so much. Really enjoyed it and excited to continue learning from you down the road. Thanks again.
Awesome. This is fun. Thanks, Jeff.
And that was AI Curious. And to follow up, Rachel was good to her word and gave a promo code just for AI Curious. When you go to the AI Exchange, and you'll see their Prompting for AI Ops Bootcamp, you can use the promo code AI Curious 50, which will give $50 off for the course. Again, that's AI Curious 50, all one word. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider giving it 5 stars and even banging out a quick review. You can use ChatGPT to write it for you, but I know it feels weird to ask that, but it does help new listeners discover the show. The algorithm prioritizes these things. Thanks again, and see you next time.